Hey, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Instead of writing my review, I'm going to give you a little taste of this book called Skyward by Sanderson. It is a delightful story, and actually the sequel is out now too. But this is book one in the series. It's about a little girl named Spencer. And this is a story that Sanderson had kind of ruminating around in his mind for quite a long time. The personality for this one, he said that this character came to him before the plot. So I want to go ahead and read to you a little bit of the prologue so you can get a feel for this character. She's a really fun character. I like her. So, only fools climb to the surface. It was stupid to put yourself in danger like that, my mother always said. Not only were there near constant debris showers from the rubble belt, but you never knew when the Krell would attack. Of course, my father traveled to the surface basically every day. He had to, as a pilot. I suppose by my mother's definition, that made him extra foolish. But I always considered him extra brave. I was still surprised when one day, after years of listening to me beg, he finally agreed to take me up with him. I was 7 years old, though in my mind I was completely grown up and utterly capable. I hurried after my father, carrying a lantern to light the rubble-strewn cavern. A lot of rocks in the tunnel were broken and cracked, most likely from the Krell bombings. Things I'd experienced down below as a rattling of dishes and tremor of light fixtures. I imagined those broken rocks as the broken bodies of my enemies, their bones shattered, their trembling arms reaching upward in a useless gesture of total and complete defeat. I was a very odd little girl. I got up to my father, and he looked back and then smiled. He had the best smile, so confident, like he never worried about what people had said about him, never worried that he was weird or didn't fit in. Then again, why should he have worried? Everyone liked him. Even people who hated ice cream and playing swords. Even whiny little Roger McCaffrey liked my father. Father took me by the arm and pointed upward. Next part is a little tricky. Let me lift you. I can do it, I said, and shook off his hand. I was grown up. I'd packed my own bag and had left Bloodletter, my stuffed bear, at home. Stuffed bears were for babies. Even if you'd fashioned your own mock power armor for yours out of string and broken ceramics. Granted, I had put my toy starfighter in my backpack. I wasn't crazy. What if we ended up getting caught in a Krell attack and they bombed our retreat, so we had to live out the rest of our lives as wasteland survivors, devoid of society or civilization? A girl needed her toy starfighter with her just in case. I handed my backpack to my father and looked up at the crack in the stones. There was something about that hole up there, an unnatural light seeping through it, wholly unlike the soft glow of our lanterns. The surface. The sky. I grinned and started to climb up the steep slope that was part rubble and part rock formation. My hand slipped and I scraped myself on a sharp edge, but I didn't cry. The daughters of pilots did not cry. The crack of the cavern roof looked 100 meters away. I hated being so small. Any day now I was going to grow tall like my father. Then for once I wouldn't be the smallest kid around. I'd laugh at everyone from up so high. They'd force me to admit how great I was. I growled softly as I got to the top rock. The next handhold was out of reach. I eyed it. Then I jumped, determined. Like a good, defiant girl, I had the heart of a star dragon. But I also had the body of a 7-year-old, so I missed it by a good half-meter. A strong hand seized me before I could fall too far. My father chuckled, holding me by the back of my jumpsuit, which I'd painted with markers to look like his flight suit. I'd even drawn a pin over my left heart, on the left over my heart, like the one he wore, the pin that marked him as a pilot. It was in the shape of a small starfighter with lines underneath. Father pulled me up on the rock beside him and then reached out with his free hand and activated his light line. The device looked like a metal bracelet, but once he engaged it by tapping 2 fingers against his palm, the band glowed with bright molten light. He touched a stone above and then drew his hand back. It left a thick line of light, like a shining rope fixed to the rock. He wrapped the other end around me so it fit snugly under my arms, then detached it from his bracelet. The glow there faded, but the luminescent rope remained in place, attaching me to the rocks. I had always thought light lines should burn to the touch, but it was just warm, like a hug. Okay, spin, he said, using my nickname. Try again. I don't need this, I said, plucking the safety rope. Humor a frightened father. Frightened? You aren't frightened of anything. You fight the Krell. He laughed. I'd rather face 100 Krell ships than your mother on the day I bring you home with a broken arm, little one. I am not little. If I break my arm, you can leave me here until I heal. I'll fight the beasts of the cavern and become feral and wear their skins and... Climb, he said, still grinning. You can fight the beasts of the caverns another time. Though I think only the ones you'd find have long tails and buck teeth. I had to admit, the light line was helpful. I could pull against it to brace myself. We reached the crack and my father pushed me up first. I grabbed the rim and scrabbled out of the cavern, stepping onto the surface for the first time in my life. It was so open. I gasped, standing there looking up at nothing. Just upness. No ceiling, no walls. I'd always imagined the surface as a really big cavern, but it was so much more, and so much less, all at once. Wow. So, do you see how Sanderson did his description, like comparing it and whatnot? And the girl's vocabulary is huge, which I think a lot of avid readers can really relate to. She does this throughout the whole story, where she's, like on page 1, it says where she's imagining the bones of, the shattered bones of her enemies and things like that. It's a lot of fun. And that attitude that she has of, she's gonna triumph is, it serves her well throughout the story because she goes through a whole lot. His prologue here really ends with a doozy of a sentence. And he does a good job consistently with, like, ending chapters. I think he does exceptionally well. So, here is the last sentence of the prologue, so I'm not spoiling too much. And I'd been branded the daughter of a coward. And that's where it ends. And then you go on to part 1, and it's, 6 or 7 years later, something like that. But excellent, excellent fun story. I highly recommend that you read this and its sequel. It's a lot of fun.